Welcome to the Traveling Professors. I'm Professor Bob.
And I'm Professor Sherry.
And together we are
the
Traveling Professors.
Hi, Professor Sherry here, and we're going to go to the Luxembourg Gardens. This was one of my specific requests for when we were in France. I'm really big on gardening as well as history, so this just hits the mark with me.
Sherry and I were staying in the northern part of Paris by the Gare du Nord, which is what you see here. We were on our vacation getting ready to go to London on the Eurostar, but there were a series of strikes by the railroads during this particular year, and this is the summer of 2018. And so of the 11 days that we had to ride the train, 10 of them were strike days, and one of them I couldn't get around. So we had to stop in the Chartres, see Chartres, get on a train and come into Paris a day early. So we stayed in a little hotel across the street from the Gare du Nord, which of course allowed us an extra day. So Sherry wanting to see the Luxembourg Gardens, and I did as well, we headed there first, and then later on in the day we would come back and go to Montmartre and see Sacré-Cœur. So on this map you can see here's where we were staying, and here is where the Luxembourg Gardens are located. It's a straight shot on the metro from where we were staying. Rail station had a metro station in it, and so we then headed south. The area of the garden today had in Gallo-Roman times actually been Roman encampment with very grand villas. After the fall of Rome, this area was basically just a forest that ultimately became the headquarters of a very well-known highwayman named Vauvert, and he ran his operation out of one of the ruined buildings. Around 1257, a group of monks, the Carthusians, convinced the king to rid the neighborhood of outlaws, and a vast monastery was built here, and a nunnery as well. You may have had some reference to the Luxembourg Gardens if you've ever read The Three Musketeers, because one of the places that the musketeers liked to duel with their opponents was the Luxembourg Gardens, claiming that the nuns would take care of anybody that was injured in this location. Later on, there'll be a palace built here, and I'll talk about the palace a little bit later. So here is where we came in to the garden area, and we're then going to go around the lake and head to these large rows of trees. Then we're going to come back to the lake because the lake has an area that people have been visiting for a very, very long time, but they have miniature boats that you can rent to sail across them. Then we'll go and head towards the main building there, which is the Senate of the French government, and then out and back to the metro. After a brief walk from the metro, we're here at one of the gates to the Luxembourg Garden. And so we head on in, take a nice relaxing walk through the trees. It is a little chilly. It's still end of May. It's a little breezy. We're a little disappointed there weren't a lot of flowers. The spring flowers have obviously gone, and they're in the process of planting the next round of flowers. When we come out of the trees, you can see to the right, the palace. It was built by Marie de Medici. And then we head south. We want to go to the south end of the park. So we go around the edge, and then you can see a little bit of the lake, but you can see the Montpessart Towers up ahead. A little closer, we end up getting right near the last probably 300 yards of the park at this section. And you can see the Montpessart Towers, which are apartments, businesses, and there's a train station across the street. Then you see these beautiful rows of trimmed trees. And at that point, we decided that we would turn around and then head back towards the palace and towards the lake. Now, you can see that there's all sorts of statues everywhere. And then you see some of the flowers. And here's a close-up of the flowers that were blooming at this particular time. Now, the palace itself, after the death of Henry IV, his queen, Marie de Medici, decided to build a palace which would recall the house of her youth in Tuscany. So in 1612, she bought the mansion of the Duke Francois of Luxembourg and a considerable adjoining area. In 1615, her architect Salmon de Brosse began construction of a palace inspired by the Pitti Palace of Florence. The building was much admired, and in 1621, Rubens was commissioned to paint a series of 24 large pictures retracing allegorical allegorically the Queen's life in pictures. They now hang in the Medici Gallery in the Louvre. In 1625, the Queen installed herself in the palace, but her joy was short-lived. She entered into opposition with Cardinal Richelieu. She extracted a promise from her son, Louis XIII, to dismiss the cardinal, but it was revoked 24 hours later, and she was banished to Cologne, where she died penniless in 1642. The palace then reverted to its original Luxembourg title, and although abandoned, remained crown property until after the French Revolution. Time for another picture of Sherry relaxing around the flowers. And then the fun is about to begin around the lake.
Here comes the homme de bateau, the boatman. Yay! The little infants, the children, line up excitedly to choose their boats. So Bob says to me, "You want to rent a boat?" And I said, "No." I was kind of embarrassed. I'm a grown woman and all the kids had the boat. But then I remembered one of my favorite sayings that I've kind of clutched to in adulthood. And it's never too late to have a happy childhood. So I went over and rented my boat for the hour. And to keep it from staying by the edge, they give you a really nice long pole. It's called a bateau long, so you can poke your boat and get it back out into the wind and out in the middle of the water. And it's really fun because there's enough wind that, it'll go over on its side. If you squint, it looks like a real sailboat out there. Don't you just love this? Artists on the sidewalk painting the scene in front. I mean, it's really pretty French, and they're serious about it. They're not there just, hawking stuff to tourists. Some people may think that I'm too old for this, but I'll tell you what, I think I was just the absolute right age.
Well, after the boats, we then went over to one of the pavilions where we had a nice little drink and a little snack, and then we began walking out to the other side. Again, we found another artist painting a picture of the Pantheon in the background there. And then we walked by the palace one more time to the backside, a little closer part, and I can give you the rest of the history to it. In 1790, when the monastery was suppressed during the French Revolution, the gardens were enlarged and the palace was extended, the vistas were extended to the length of the Avenue des Observations. During the Reign of Terror, it became a prison. After the Reign of Terror, the building next became a parliamentary assembly for the Directory period of the French government, the consulate period of the French government, and the Senate building and its successor, the Chamber of Peers, under the Napoleonic era. Chagrin, the architect of the Arc de Triomphe and the Odeon, completely transformed the interior from 1836 to 1841, and Alphonse de Grisors enlarged it on the garden side by the addition of a new front to the main building and two projecting wings. At various dates, Marshal Ney, the conspirator, Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, the future Napoleon III, and members of the Commune turned against it were all tried in this palace. In the Second World War, the building was occupied by the Germans, and on the 25th of August 1944, it was freed by Leclerc's division and the French resistance. It is now the seat of the Senate of the French Upper House, which is made up of 283 members chosen by an electoral college.
Yes, they are practicing their boxing. And I'll tell you what, her partner had better be on his or her toes because she was pretty darn good at this.
After watching the boxers work out, the next thing is we walked by this great big fountain dedicated to the artist Delacroix. It's just beautiful. And then we begin walking about another block through this beautiful grove of trees, and then out on the street, we went by the Church of Saint Sulpice and then to the metro. And from the metro, we then headed back north, and once we got back to the Gare du Nord, we began our journey up to Montmartre to see Sacré-Cœur. So I hope you enjoyed our little trip. Sherry and I hope you enjoyed the tour. Please come by our YouTube channel at Bob Packett on YouTube. It should be History According to Bob, but it comes up as Bob Packett. That's the easiest way to get to it. And please subscribe and leave some comments. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, give a comment, and if you like history, please come by historyaccordingtobob.com website where I do 6 podcasts a week on different topics in history, and there's all sorts of CDs and other things that you can see. So thank you very much.